A man who dares to waste 1 hour of time has not discovered the value of life. Animals, whom we have made our slaves, we do not like to consider our equal. I cannot persuade myself that a beneficent and omnipotent God would have designedly created parasitic wasps with the express intention of their feeding within the living bodies of caterpillars. Ignorance more frequently begets confidence than does knowledge. It is those who know little, and not those who know much, who so positively assert that this or that problem will never be solved by science. Man tends to increase at a greater rate than his means of subsistence. The very essence of instinct is that it's followed independently of reason. A man's friendships are one of the best measures of his worth. At some future period, not very distant as measured by centuries, the civilized races of man will almost certainly exterminate, and replace the savage races throughout the world. I have called this principle, by which each slight variation, if useful, is preserved, by the term of natural selection. In the long history of humankind, and animal kind, too, those who learn to collaborate and improvise most effectively have prevailed. My mind seems to have become a kind of machine for grinding general laws out of large collections of facts. To kill an error is as good a service as, and sometimes even better than, the establishing of a new truth or fact. A moral being is one who is capable of reflecting on his past actions and their motives, of approving of some and disapproving of others. False facts are highly injurious to the progress of science, for they often endure long, but false views, if supported by some evidence, do little harm, for everyone takes a salutary pleasure in proving their falseness. I have tried lately to read Shakespeare, and found it so intolerably dull that it nauseated me. It is a cursed evil to any man to become as absorbed in any subject as I am in mine. On the ordinary view of each species having been independently created, we gain no scientific explanation. We can allow satellites, planets, suns, universe, nay whole systems of universes, to be governed by laws, but the smallest insect, we wish to be created at once by special act. A scientific man ought to have no wishes, no affections, a mere heart of stone. How paramount the future is to the present when one is surrounded by children. I love fools' experiments. I am always making them. It is not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent that survives. It is the one that is the most adaptable to change. The highest possible stage in moral culture is when we recognize that we ought to control our thoughts. We must, however, acknowledge, as it seems to me, that man with all his noble qualities, still bears in his bodily frame the indelible stamp of his lowly origin. An American monkey, after getting drunk on brandy, would never touch it again, and thus is much wiser than most men. I am turned into a sort of machine for observing facts and grinding out conclusions. If the misery of the poor be caused not by the laws of nature, but by our institutions, great is our sin. Man is descended from a hairy-tailed quadruped, probably arboreal in its habits. The mystery of the beginning of all things is insoluble by us, and I for one must be content to remain an agnostic. What a book a devil's chaplain might write on the clumsy, wasteful, blundering, low, and horribly cruel work of nature. If I had my life to live over again, I would have made a rule to read some poetry and listen to some music at least once every week. The love for all living creatures is the most notable attribute of man. We stopped looking for monsters under our bed when we realized that they were inside us. I am not apt to follow blindly the lead of other men. Intelligence is based on how efficient a species became at doing the things they need to survive. Blushing is the most peculiar and most human of all expressions. Besides love and sympathy, animals exhibit other qualities connected with the social instincts which in us would be called moral. Man selects only for his own good, nature only for that of the being which she tends. Great is the power of steady misrepresentation. One general law, leading to the advancement of all organic beings, namely, multiply, vary, let the strongest live and the weakest die,